We flash back to the year 1973. And our car tester Matas Kurat had the new VW 1303 convertible out for a spin. Now he's going to stop and open up the soft top. No sooner said than done. Experienced VW drivers can open the roof and roll down all 4 windows in 30 seconds flat. Look at the sophisticated mechanisms to lower the rear side windows. After our tester has mastered this task, he sets off again. Back to the present. The modern-day equivalent of the 1303 is the VW Beetle Convertible. Matas says this is the new Beetle Convertible with its 2-liter turbo engine. But since a convertible's twice the fun with the top down, he's going to open up the roof. This can be done while driving in less than 15 seconds. He thinks that's fantastic. He says the steering is much improved, as on the 1302 model, in part due to the McPherson struts up front. Matas would prefer the steering a tad tighter, though he says it's not in any way indirect or spongy. He says it's very precise, and you can turn it exactly the amount you want, not just roughly, but really precisely. Though, for his taste, it would be a bit sportier. Many of the changes to the VW 1303 are found in the details. Take the 4-speed transmission. Matas says that, in contrast to the previous model, the gear shift has been pushed back a bit, making it easier to reach and move. In the new Beetle Convertible, Matas notes that the 6-speed manual transmission also allows for very precise shifting. And he says an automatic is also available for those who prefer to keep their hands on the steering wheel. Like the manual, this dual-clutch transmission is also a 6-speed and is just as finely tuned. Matas appreciates the 1303's panoramic windshield, as it gives him a completely different sense of space than the flat windshields of previous VWs. He has a few criticisms of the new Beetle, though. The dashboard is made of a hard plastic that VW hardly ever uses in Europe anymore. Normally, dashboards here come well padded. He notes that 40 years ago, VW's 1303 convertible already had a padded dash. He's testing the Beetle Convertible with the strongest engine, a 2-liter 147 kilowatt TSI. For the moment, this version is only available in the U.S., where it sells for just under $28,000. The response and acceleration of the 4-cylinder motor are stellar. Matas says the 1303 came with optional extras like this radio, a clock, and a ventilation system. The trouble these cars have with their heating is well known. In the winter, the windows fog up, though he says that won't be of much concern in a convertible, which is a fine weather car. Our tester says buyers of the new turbocharged Beetle get these nice instruments thrown in, which give the car a bit of a sporty touch. Air conditioning comes standard on the Beetle, and Matas says an optional seat heater lets you go topless even in winter. On the beach in Malibu, California, the latest Beetle Convertible meets its famous ancestor, and Matas encounters his double.
Schickes Auto hast du da.
Nice car, he says.
Ist neu.
It's new.
Ja, gut.
This one
War der
was
andere
new
auch
once
mal.
too, he
Ja, gut,
notes.
vor 40 Jahren.
40 years
Ja,
ago.
vor 40, ziemlich
Exactly.
genau.
And the
Ja,
trunk,
und
he asks?
Kofferraum. Kofferraum.
It has
Hat er
one,
auch.
Matas replies.
Motor.
And the engine?
Schön. Motor.
That too, thank
Hat er Gott
goodness.
sei Dank auch.
Matas
Das
says,
ist
or else I'd have to
ja,
push it.
Dann können wir uns
The
das
two
mal
Matases
angucken, oder?
decide to
Guck
take a
mal.
closer look.
Ja, hier.
Here's the
Kofferraum.
trunk,
Wie
at
ich
the
das
front
gehört?
where it belongs,
Schön
one
vorne.
Matas says.
Damals in
Old
der
ads
Werbung
showed that
war
you'd had
extra
room for 4
gezeigt,
cases
dass
of
hier
beer, he
4
says,
Kisten
but there's
reinpassen.
just a first aid
Heute
kit in
nur
here.
mit der
He's
Wandflasche.
curious if the new Beetle can hold as much.
Da geht richtig was rein. Und bei dir, mach mal auf.
His double opens the
Ja,
hood at the
dann wirf mal
front,
einen Blick hier unter die
but there's
Fronthaube.
no room to put anything in there.
Da passen aber keine Einkäufe rein.
Of course,
natürlich
says his
nicht. Das
double,
ist ja auch
this is the engine,
Motor.
a
Hier.
turbo.
Turbo.
So,
Ja.
where's the cargo
Wo
space?
ist das Gepäck? Ja, das
Not in
Gepäck,
the engine, his double
das ist
explains.
eben genau da,
It's
wo
in
nicht
the
der Motor
back.
ist. Kofferraum ist hier hinten.
While the opening is small,
Man hat eine etwas
he
kleine
says the
Öffnung,
trunk
okay.
holds a fair
Aber
bit.
ansonsten,
He asks, what's at the back of the 1303?
ja. Was hast du hinten? Ja, bei mir
Matas
ist
says the
natürlich
engine,
hinten der
naturally, a
Motor.
4-cylinder
Guck mal,
boxer.
4-Zylinder
And he thinks
Boxermotor und der
it sounds
Sound.
amazing.
Unglaublich. Na, dann lass
His
doch mal
double
hören.
wants to hear it.
Ja, 40 Jahre.
Our tester says you really notice the 40 years difference between these two cars. In its day, the VW 1303 was one of the nicest convertibles around that didn't cost an arm and a leg and boasted all the extras. The present-day Beetle is more comfortable, modern, and pleasant to drive, even in bad weather. He says he always had cold feet in old Beetles, but Matas says we'll have to wait another 40 years to see whether the new Beetle will achieve the cult status of the old VW Bug.
Ob wirklich den Kultstatus des Alten erreicht, das können wir leider erst in 40 Jahren sagen.
Mercedes might be a German brand, but this model is something of a rarity here. After all, at 5.12 meters, the 7-seater luxury vehicle makes parking a rather daunting task. But in the U.S., where it's made, it's one of the most popular models of SUV. Buyers there are attracted to its slick features and to the second-generation engines that make this model about 20% more efficient than its predecessor. Drive it is in Hochgurgel in Austria to test out the GL500 4MATIC Blue efficiency.
Der GL ist
Christian Anasovic, head of global communications at Mercedes, says that while it's a pretty hefty vehicle, it's still a market leader in the U.S. But he says there's a market in Europe too. He's especially proud of the many new innovations, like the 360-degree camera, giving the driver an all-round view on the command display. There's only one way to get a true sense of the dimensions of this vehicle. Take a walk around it. Our test model has 19-inch alloy wheels and kick strips down the sides for ease of entry. For an extra 2,300 euros, buyers get an optional on-off road package that promises to improve handling on all kinds of terrain. Christian Anasovic points out that with the optional on-off road package comes additional gear reduction and locking differential that can facilitate a climbing ability of up to 100%. The driver can turn a dial to choose from 6 different driving programs. It automatically adjusts the vehicle's configuration to the driving conditions and type of terrain. The snow mode is even designed to work with tire chains to provide the most stable conditions to steer the car. Even the automatic transmission switches adjust to the change. Despite its weight, it would give some sports cars a run for their money with a maximum speed of 250 kilometers and an acceleration from 0 to 100 in just 5.4 seconds. But that comes with an equally staggering CO2 emission of 262 grams per kilometer. In terms of design, you could describe it either as solid and sturdy, or if you are being a little harsh, quite simply as boring. It's definitely not a car for fans of avant-garde design. But that said, it doesn't try to be either. On a technical level, the GL has a lot in common with the M-Class, but with even more stress on comfort. The Airmatic air suspension system is standard. It allows a maximum ground clearance of 30 centimeters, as well as crosswind stabilization. Christian Anasovic says the company is working on developing many of the assistance systems for the smaller models. In the A and B classes, the collision prevention assist, a radar-based warning system, is now standard, resulting in a reduction in rear-end collisions. But other systems, like attention assist and a lane departure warning system, are also available in smaller models. But it's not all about innovations trickling down from top to bottom. It works the other way around, too. Active Park Assist came in with the A and B classes, Christian tells us. That's because they had electric power steering. But that's now becoming standard in top-range models, too. The new GL features the same technology. So what's the verdict? Robert Sattink, our car tester, says the Mercedes GL is like a massive brick on wheels. But despite the enormous weight, it's a surprisingly smooth drive and easy to handle. It's an ideal car to drive in wintry conditions. He reckons appearances can be deceptive. He says this is more like an off-road vehicle than an SUV. Peugeot has given its RCZ sports car a facelift. The distinctive double bubble roof has been retained as a central design feature, but the RCZ's front has acquired a new sporty elegance. The grille has gotten smaller and now carries the Peugeot badging across its upper edge. The front spoiler has been totally redesigned with a sweeping one-piece air scoop. The new RCZ is to make its debut in late February. Skoda is introducing the third generation of its Octavia. Besides a new design, it's grown noticeably larger than its predecessor, moving to the head of the compact car class. It's gained 9 centimeters in length and over 4 centimeters in width. The added size has gone mostly to more space for the interior in general and for the cargo space in particular. A new engine lineup has made the Octavia more fuel efficient. The new Skoda will be launched in Germany in February. Flip and fold is more practical than removing seats. That was the concept that drove the development of the first Zafira in the late 1990s and set an example for the entire minivan market segment. Now the third generation Opel Zafira has hit the streets, and its flip and fold concept has only gotten better. We tested the 2-liter 121 kilowatt diesel. Its 380 Newton meters are enough torque to get this space wagon started and get it moving cross-country. Andreas Hefele of Opel concedes the car has grown a bit, but then that's why the old model is still alive. The normal Zafira family has a bright future because it has the normal-sized market segment thoroughly covered. Optically, the new Zafira Tourer takes after its little sister Meriva. That also now shows elements of the Opel look. With a length of 4.66 meters, it has grown indeed, a full 23 centimeters longer than its predecessor. The front is edged with boomerang-shaped headlight assemblies. Special highlight of the 7-seater van is its panoramic sunroof. Even on cloudy days, the Zafira is lit up bright on the inside. The seating system has been reworked to give families more space. Andreas Hefele explains that Opel once again focused mainly on the Flex 7 seating system, an Opel invention that the company is continuing to develop. What stands out about the Zafira, he says, is that you can leave the seats inside the car and still have the same versatility you'd have with removable seats. Nearly 1,800 liters of cargo space is fairly average. The cockpit aims a bit higher, with instruments from Opel's flagship Insignia model. Andreas Hefele says the seats can be folded down flat for a level floor in the rear. Not that easy to achieve given the technical demands. Opel had to find room for its flex fixed carrier under the floor, along with all the usual components, the axles and fuel tank. That meant they had to start with the interior architecture and develop the styling all around it.
Also insofern geht es eben mit der Architektur los und dann praktisch entwickelt sich das Styling außenrum.
The third row of seats in the Tourer cost just €700 extra. In the old family model, it was still standard. The moon landing was no doubt the most pioneering event of 1969. But what Volkswagen and Porsche came out with that year also looked to many sports car lovers like something out of this world. Our test driver says he's driving around Trentino, and Italians love La Bella Macchina. But when they look at his 914, their brows just wrinkle. No one here knows quite what to make of it. It's not recognizable as a Porsche and doesn't sound like a sports car either. He doesn't know what the 914 is, but he intends to find out. Sales of the 914 weren't so bad. Around 120,000 of them were built. That made it the first mid-engine car to rack up 6-digit production figures. Christoph says the VW Porsche 914 always polarized people, and still does today. Some consider the car a rotten compromise, others a true maverick. He says if he belongs to one camp, then it's the latter. He really likes the Carmen build body and the mid-engine construction. The flat 4-cylinder, 80-horsepower engine from VW is fine too. He feels that a top speed of 177 kilometers is okay for such a small car. The angular 914 was no car for softies. Its retractable headlights were a concession to the American market. In 1969, curves were out, so the VW Porsche is dominated by sharp angles and straight lines. Part Carmen Ghia, part successor to the Porsche 912, the 914 combined marketing strategy with an attempt to make an affordable yet agile sports car. Its cockpit is clinically cool. Its 80-horsepower boxer engine, air-cooled. From the start, VW and Porsche wanted to fit the 914 with a mid-engine located just in front of the rear axle. The basic model came with a 4-cylinder VW motor, while the sportier one boasted a 6-cylinder designed for the Porsche 911. Christoph says he's driving the smaller version with the 4-cylinder flat engine from VW. It has 80 horsepower and reasonable torque. A bit more thrust when going uphill would be nice, he says, but that's just nitpicking. The 914 made its motorsport debut in the 1,000-kilometer endurance race at the Nürburgring in 1970, fitted with the 2-liter 6-cylinder engine from the 911. The Roadster deservedly placed second, third, fourth, and fifth in its class, and the 914 6 GT did even better at the Marathon de la Route, 86 hours race there, clinching the top 3 spots. Christoph says it's fun to take curves fast in this car. You're happy it has a mid-engine, as its power is well balanced. Though if it does cause oversteering, there's little time to react. It's a typical mid-engine, he notes. The mid-engine has other advantages too. While the 911 dances around on the road and requires some effort to keep it in line, the 914 just keeps going straight. Our tester says the cooperation between VW and Porsche on the 914 was historic. So, in that respect, it is an automotive milestone. But personally, he's not so sure about the end result.
Ich weiß da nicht. Irgendwas ist da irgendwie. Ich weiß es nicht.
In financial terms, the 914 wasn't a huge success. Its ambivalent image and idiosyncratic design kept it from being a top seller. Models in original condition, like this one from the Zeithaus Automobile Museum in Wolfsburg, now change hands for €15,000.